The ripping plane is a half-truth, half-lie. It rips boards, but it doesn't plane them. A little over a year ago, I was at an auction with Jeff Warshawski, and I had an absolute blast there, saw some really cool things. But then this thing came up for auction, and you look at the bottom and it's like, what is the wheel on there for? And I thought this was absolutely cool, but neither Jeff nor I really knew what it was for. But when it came up for auction, it went for a steal of a deal, and I honestly couldn't stop my hand from rising up. And so I own this thing. I got it home and did some research, and come to find out it's a Kenny's patent ripping plane. And kind of cool. But honestly, isn't that what a 45 does? The 45 and the 55 have this spur on the side that basically does the same thing. So why would I want a plane with a wheel? The simple reason is this idea of ripping boards without actually removing material and actually just snapping them in two is a really old idea, and different people have been trying things differently over time. And the wheel really makes sense. It's the same reason why a lot of people like wheel marking gauges over pins or knives. There's a problem though. That is a task you don't need to do very often. When you want to plane down a board, you need to do that for every project. If you need to cut it to length, you need to do that for every project. But this is good for ripping thin stock material under 3/8 of an inch, or 8 millimeters. But a lot of people use thin stock material for drawer bottoms or making small boxes. And if you're going to be ripping down a lot of thin stock, it's actually a bit of a pain to use a saw. Even with a good fine-tooth Japanese saw, the boards tend to bend and flex around and jump, and they have a bad tendency of cracking if you ever impart any twist in the saw. The ripping plane doesn't have that problem. The ripping plane goes right over the grain, and because of that, it has a small advantage in one very specific area. But the serious problem is that these were only made for a few years, over 100 years ago, and no one has attempted to make this rolling, cutting wheel since then. That is, until Jeff Warshawski went to an auction with Wood by Wright, and he said, you know what, I can do that, and the ripping plane was reborn. It took over a year of development and playing around with different things and trying all sorts of different applications, but now he is actually selling a kit. And I did a video recently making this one, and honestly it works just like the original. It's got the rolling cutting wheel on the bottom, and this large adjuster actually makes it really easy to adjust it up and down. I find this one a little bit easier to use than the original because of that large wheel. But how does it actually perform? So let's actually do it back to back between both of these, and for good measure, let's throw in the 45 and see what happens. I'm going to do 2 passes with each tool and just see what happens. And there you can see how the 45 just, it keeps wanting to ride the grain and follow out this way. So I can only do it in one direction. If I go in the other direction, it catches the grain and rips out. Original ripping plane. It holds its distance nicely. And then for the reed planes variant. See, this one honestly feels the best of the 3, but I think that's just because it has that really thin blade. And here you can see the lines side by side. That over there is the cutter from the 45. This is the original. And then over here is the new pattern. And much, much thinner, nice clean line on that. I love that thin blade. You can see a big dashed line on the original. And then this 45 was having a lot of trouble following the grain. But let's see which of these 3 lines breaks first. And I'm just going to put pressure up at the top here. And we've got the new one, Jeff's. Let's break all 3 and see what's the difference in their grain structure. Yeah, that 45 is really hard to crack. Here you can see them side by side. We got the 45, the original, and then the newer one. And when you look at them all told, the original and the new one are very, very similar. The 45 has very clean on the outside and the inside, but the middle is still just as much of a mess. So to clean them up would require about the same amount of planing to make them smooth. Now I picked this particular piece of alder because the grain really runs out of this. It is a very, very steep angle. It's actually from here, the grain runs out to about here. So it's a very steep grain on this. So it's about the worst possible case. If you get nice, clean, straight grain, you can get a very smooth cut of these just right off of the plane. But even with this wild grain, it's not going to take that many plane passes to clean any of these down. And if you're making a drawer bottom, you'd have no reason to clean it up because it's just going to go into a groove and disappear. So if you find yourself making a lot of drawers or boxes, that might be something worth picking up. But if you're generally just making regular furniture, then probably not. Though it is a lot of fun to play with. I have to say I have made many small sticks out of bid sticks because it is very enjoyable to play with. Jeff is also selling the kit in 3 different formats so you can buy the pieces you want. You can buy just the cutter and make all the hardware yourself. You can buy it with the cutter and all of the brass hardware that's at the base. Or you can buy the whole kit, and that includes the rod, all of the wood for both the fence and the body and the top, as well as all of the brass hardware, and the tote and knob. And these are actually the ones from Compass Rose. They're Rex's new knobs, and I honestly kind of like them for this. It fits well. The black on there, it's kind of sharp. The ripping plane is really one of those tools in search of a problem to fix. It doesn't have a whole lot of uses, but like a lot of hand tools, it has one small case where it really shines. And honestly, ripping thin stock down, making thin boards smaller, it's actually really good at that, and I kind of like it. Now, if you want to see more detail on it, I have a video where I go into this one on a lot more detail and some of the history and background to it, and actually have a video making the fence, as well as I have a video putting this together, showing it in a couple different formats, so you can see if it's something you want to take on. Because it is actually a surprisingly fun build. I really enjoyed putting this together. That was a very good time. So yeah, I'd love to hear your questions, thoughts, ideas, snide remarks, because they help out the channel. Anytime you like, comment, share, subscribe, you know all those things. Really, honestly, it does help out. So thank you for that. Put a comment down below, or just CBD, comment down below. But if you really want to be amazing, you could join these people over there. Those are some of the fantastic, wonderful, benevolent, gorgeous, and amazing people over on Patreon. And without patrons like them, this channel would not exist. We are completely sponsored by you. Yes, I do make a little bit on this, but it's really only like $4 or $5. So yeah, if you want to help out, think about joining them. Thank you for that. So on that note, I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you are too. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Sometimes it's honestly a good idea to reinvent the wheel. Rip Van Plane. Honestly, yeah, he's pretty old.